So in our last session and even the previous sessions, we talked about essentially every organization aspires to be fair and equitable internally. That is in the way you pay salaries or you pay salaries within the organization and aspires to be competitive. So by looking at the external market or what the market is paying. So we looked at both internal equity. How do they establish internal equity? Through job evaluation. And how do you become competitive? Anybody? Hey guys. How do you become competitive? If you want to aspire to be competitive, are you there?
We look at the, sorry.
I gave you a lead saying internally, if I want to be fair and equitable, I do job evaluation to establish and ensure that I am paying as per the worth of the job. And if I want to be competitive, then what do I do?
Benchmarking.
Benchmarking.
Benchmarking, absolutely. So we do market pricing, we do benchmarking, we get the market data, essentially comparing ourselves with the comparable companies of products and services and where our skill sets are going, we get the data. Now, we also talked about there is another equity. What is that? If anybody can remember. One chocolate for them. I'll ask Vilma to give one chocolate.
Individual equity.
Exactly, individual equity. So what is individual equity? I explained just to warm up and get to know and also to prick your veins. So I mentioned about individual equity. What is individual equity? Anybody? Internal equity with reference to jobs, internal jobs. External equity with reference to the salary being paid. Now, individual equity refers to what? When two individuals, I'm giving the clue, but somebody said, so I'll let you do that.
Compare salary with the peer group.
When two individuals are holding or doing what? Identical jobs, right? Here what it is? Identical jobs. Like for example, there are two HR executives who are doing identical jobs, who are doing the same job descriptions, but there is a pay differential, right? So how do we establish if they are doing over and above something, then how do we establish individual equity? So that is what we are going to talk about essentially in this program, which is very, very important. We're talking about all about establishing individual equity. 2, we will be talking about compensation structuring. 3, we'll also look at compensation budgeting. Okay. Now, having said that, so if you recall, all of you, we looked at what? Direct and indirect. Okay. And then we looked at base salaries. How do we establish base salaries? Through job evaluation. And then external equity through market pricing. Now, the next component in a direct salary is variable pay. So when we talk about individual equity, how do we establish individual equity? Then we look at the entire gamut of variable pays. Okay. Now, why do you think in organizations today we are promoting variable pays? Anybody? I'm sure, is there any organization which does not have a component like a variable pay? Rahul, Maithili, all of you have been working for many, many years. Is there any organization which does not have variable pay? And if it has, why do you think they have this pay mix of variable pay?
To increase the productivity, efficiency.
To increase the productivity, to increase the efficiency.
To reduce the fixed cost, which can be linked to performance of the business also.
Okay, good, good. So before I actually mention about this, I also wanted to state that if you recall, I said compensation is, to design a structure to design the pay mix is an art and science, right? Which is dependent on what the type of industry, the type of organization, and also what the kind of compensation strategy you have. So when I talked about pay mix, if you recall, we said every organization will have a pay mix of certain amount, certain percentage of base pay, certain amount of variable pay. So it all depends on the kind of pay mix. Pay mix is dependent on what you really want to achieve. Say, for example, somebody stated, if I want to actually achieve a lot of revenue, right? High on performance. So what will I do? I'll definitely have a higher percentage of variable pay so that, you perform and you take pay for performance, right? Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So somebody said, yes, it will also reduce the cost. But whereas if I'll have a higher base pay, what will happen? There will be an increase in the cost. A lot of people are doing payroll. So the payroll guys will know that higher the wage cost, lesser the profit, right?
Yes.
Lesser EBITDA. So what will I do? Hey, I want to use another component so that increase the variable pay so that you can actually then it pays up for the percentage of cost which comes will actually be taken care of by the revenue generated. All right. Now, having said that, when we talk about variable pay, essentially, why do you think variable pay? So there are two people who are actually doing the same job. Like say, for example, who's Sagar Samant is a payroll expert, okay? But he is also given an additional responsibility. But there's another payroll person who is just doing the same job in the same level and getting the same salary. Okay, so Sagar is getting the same salary, even X person is getting the same salary. But Sagar is doing over and above the job description. So will it be fair for me to pay the same salary, or do you think I need to pay a little more to Sagar? Sagar, should we be paying more?
Yes, yes, I got
Huh?
it is my yeah, मुझे performance पे मुझे मिलना चाहिए norms में.
No,
So
no,
it
no, no,
will-
no. I'm taking even if you are paying, yeah. If you are doing much more, so the variable pay helps organizations for the top performers to stretch. Because if I'm saying that somebody is doing 100 units and another person is doing only 150, let me just start using the code. Somebody is achieving as a goal, okay, as a goal, 100 units. And there's another person who's achieving 200 units. Okay. Now, if I don't have the option for a variable pay, then why should this person A and this is B, if you say,
Sorry,
okay,
Nirmal, are
B.
you sharing something? I'm not able to see the screen. Maybe on
What about others?
Yes, yes, view हो रहा है 100 and 200 वाला.
Yeah.
Pay-
So I'm using a blackboard here. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said there are two people. Are you able to see? So there are two people, two employees, A and B. A is achieving 100 units and B is achieving 200 units. And I don't have the option for a variable pay plan. So I only have base pay. So A also gets the same salary and B also gets the same salary. After some time, Sagar will say, hey, I'm stretching myself, but what is this? I'm not getting anything extra. A Gade or horses and donkeys are almost getting paid the same. So then you are actually what? Stopping a top performer for achieving further. And he says, okay, next month I'm also going to do only 100 units. What is the incentive for me? Why should I stretch myself? Right, Sagar?
Right, right, ma'am.
So therefore, the variable pay plans or pay for performance helps an organization to what? Help the top performers to stretch and also the average performers to actually, raise their bar because they say, hey, I can get this one. So let me stretch a little more and that cut. Now, having just created that to warm you all up, Okay, let me now, let me just clear up this drawing. Okay, now when we talk about variable pay, yeah, essentially variable pay has 4 elements. The common classic is for performance. Okay, then there is for, you can call it as hardship. Okay, then you call it as what? Either merit or slash, you can also call it as skills. And then there is something called hot skill, or we can call it as MERIT, market linked incentive bonus, or you can also call it as bonus. So there are 4 elements of variable pay. You have the classic example of pay for performance, then you have hardship, then you have skills, and then you have hot skill. I will touch upon performance in the end because that is quite elaborate. Let me give you a little quick understanding of hardship. Okay. Now I'm sure everybody is aware of. So when I'm saying variable, we need to understand that as the name suggests, it varies. So when I say it varies, what does it mean, guys? Quick, because this is just a repetition. So I want you all to understand. When I say it varies, what does it mean? Quick.
Depends on what your skills are, what the organization is, the background of the whole.
Yeah. So when I say the word varies, that means it is not a fixed or a guaranteed income which comes, month on month. Okay. It varies. You may not get anything, or you may get something. So you cannot say that I'm going to get X amount of money month on month. All right. It varies contingent on certain factors. Okay. And what are those factors? It could be performance. It could be hardship. It could be skills. It could be market linked incentive bonus. So it varies. That's very, very important. Now, when we talk about what hardship as a contingency, okay, what does it mean? That 2 employees are doing the same job. For example, I'll take a simple example of a call center executive who does the same job of taking calls. One takes it in the daytime, one takes it in the nighttime. Okay. So do I actually give him the same salary without giving an additional kind of an allowance for a person who's working at night? He's working under certain what? Hardship. That means coming at night. So what do we give him typically then?
Hardship allowance.
Hardship allowance. And what is it called?
Night
Night shift allowance.
Night allowance.
Right? Can you recall some kind of these allowances in your organization?
Yes, we
Quick.
have the shift allowance.
Pardon? One second.
We have the shift allowance, the hardship
Shift allowance. Right. Then anybody?
Yeah, hardship allowance
People
is there.
working in
Hardship
remote location.
in the name
Pardon?
People
People
working
work-
in remote location.
Absolutely remote, because they are working in a location which is a little, with the maybe poor, availability of resources. Maybe the climate is not really up to the mark. So remote allowance. Otherwise, how will people go, right? People working in the oil and gas, you have something called rig allowance, right?
Right.
You also have 3 months off and on. Then quick overtime.
Overtime, standby, on call, these premium pays.
Yeah. So it's very clear. Why do you give them? Because they are working under some hazardous. They're working under some kind of, environmental. It could be pollution. It could be political instability. It could be high altitude. So under all these various conditions, you give hardship allowance. It could be lump sum, right? It is not a percentage of base salary, or it's typically a lump sum amount. And why do we not factor it as a part of the base salary? Because if I'm going to factor it as a part of the base salary, then it becomes your part of increment, etc. And say maybe after some time he shifted to another location where it is normal, or from a day shift, from a night shift to a day shift, then you need to withdraw. So you can withdraw this hardship allowance, but you cannot suddenly bring down the base salary. And therefore, it is given as a contingent allowance, contingency based on certain, whatever those contingencies are. Maybe it is night, maybe it is remote, maybe it is, certain hard conditions, etc. Very clear, guys? I don't want to elaborate and take more time because we have a lot of things. Is this very clear?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. Now let us go to the skills part. I will need a little more. We can call it as merit / skills. Now this can be further classified into what? Cross skills and up skills. Okay, let me talk about cross skills. Has anybody heard of cross skills? I'll give you a very simple example. Say, for example, in a manufacturing organization, all right, there are two skills, welder and fitter, right? A welder does welding and a fitter does a fitting job. So I hire a fitter, which is a little low skill job. Okay. And at that point of time, I'll say, hey, if you also acquire welding skills through external certifications through or internal, and then you actually then get certified by our internal training academy, then from that day you get an additional incentive for having acquired another skill. Now when I say cross skill, that means related to that business, related to that unit, or related to that location. Are you with me? Mostly in manufacturing organizations, you use this skill building. What is the advantage of having this cross skill this way for organizations to promote? Quick.
There's cost saved for recruitment in case one person can do two people's job, sort of like that if it's the same.
So employers also, it's a win-win strategy. A, employee becomes multi-skilled. His employability increases. For the employer, what happens? A, lean workforce. You agree? I
Yes.
don't have to spend too much on my lean workforce ability to, because every time there is a turnover or absenteeism, what happens? There is always somebody who can do the work. Two, in terms of recruitment, say for example, I've used a fitter, but welding skills have suddenly become very, very high in demand. Now I already have people who are skilled in welding. So what will I do? I will actually not recruit a welder. I will upgrade these guys who are already there with that, and then take more at a fitter level. So it helps organizations to reduce their wage cost and at the same time keep their workforce lean and not necessarily increase their full-time employees. Are you with me, guys? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what is upskilling? For example, I have recruited in a banking industry a BCom, not necessarily a certified chartered accountant. Okay. Now, what will I do? I'll say, hey, in a span of maybe 3 years or 5 years, I'll give him a career progression. Says, if you get yours, pass your chartered accountancy part 1, chartered accountancy part 2, giving him milestones, then you get additional salary increments, and then you also get promoted at the end of 5 years to become a manager. So what's happening? You incentivize for those additional certifications, and you are also getting a person who is actually your top performer and whom you are able to retain. So what happens by having this cross skilling and upskilling? What is the advantage for the employer? You are able to what? Retain and also help to perform.
Okay.
You don't have to buy from the market at a very high cost. Are you with me? And
Yes.
today, skill building process and skill building has become very popular. Tell me why. Why do you think the skill-based space are becoming very, very popular in organizations? Even the IT organizations are now taking into consideration the skill building process and skill building pay. Guys, I want you all to really talk so that you learn. That is why I keep questioning, so that even if you make wrong, responses, I'm able to clarify. Yeah, why do you think?
So there's a huge cultural shift in all organizations across because of globalization, plus in the efforts to retain and develop, your internal population, upskill them, cross skill
Yeah,
them. So
yeah.
it is all
Right,
eventually.
right. Okay, yeah, market forces. But have you noticed in manufacturing organizations, this was always the cross-skilling and upskilling. But even in technology organizations, because of the rapid speed with which the change is happening and you need different technologies, now organizations in IT are identifying and are based on the kind of skills they need, that is technologies they need, they are now what? Promoting cross-skilling and upskilling even in IT organizations. Because if they have to buy from the market, then it's a huge cost. And to keep their human capital readiness and trying to create a talent pipeline, they use this cross-skilling and skilling. Okay, guys? Very clear?
Okay. Clear.
Okay. Now, I will also show you the slides, but now let us get into, let me just clear this. Hot skill. As the name suggests, hot skill. Hot skill necessarily need not be a very critical skill. But suddenly, what has happened? Say simple, a Java. Lot of mom and pop shops have come up with, a requirement for Java skills. Then what happens? That skill has become very, very hot. But that necessarily does not mean that it's going to remain hot all the time. Now, if you are using a Java skill, then you need to recognize, hey, the market, suddenly there is a huge demand. So I need to actually give them some kind of a bonus, realizing the fact that this is now a hot skill. And if I don't, my people can actually leave the organization. So in order to ensure that your people don't attrite, don't exit, then you give them a bonus, which is actually called a hot skill bonus or a market linked bonus. Why did I say market linked? The moment it eases, the moment supply is becoming better than demand, then what will I do? I will withdraw, because that can be, say, for a year or 2 years or 3 years, right? Very clear? And how do organizations identify which are market linked, hot skills? Every organization, especially IT organizations, they do have a vertical where they, through their market intelligence, they will find, oh, this year, these 3 or 4 skills are very, very critical, very hot, because a lot of the organizations are going to need suddenly these kind of skill set. And if I'm using those skill sets, then I need to recognize the fact and quickly get this hot skill bonus there. Okay, very clear, guys. All this talked about hardship and merit skills, cross skills, and about hot skill. Can we move on?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Now comes the most important thing, and most of the organizations, what is that? Pay for performance. Any classic example of this? Any classic example of this?
Salespeople, sales staff.
Somebody at last said it. Oh, I'm so glad. Salespeople. Where? So when I say salespeople in pay for performance, as a fundamental principle. What is very, very clear? There are two things which are very clear. What are they? The predetermined. What is predetermined? Can I say a goal? Or can I say what you need to achieve? Or can I say, somebody said, I can hear target. Is this very clear?
Yes.
Target. And how much will I get, right? How much will I get? How much will I get? And what else? One is the target is very clear. How much will I get? And there is also what?
It's a measurable target. Basically.
Metrics, no? Not that if I have done 100 units, I will get everything. Because there are metrics in terms of what? In terms of time, in terms of quality, maybe in terms of even resources used, right? So depending on whatever is the goal, there will be also metrics in terms of quality, time, resources, etc. Because you need to perform according to those metrics. What we call it as typically in organizations, what do we call them? KPIs, key performance indicators, right? For example, for a recruiter, if I say you have to, for a recruiter, the target typically is what? What is the target for a recruiter? Say 20 positions to be closed. And I will say close them in 60 days. Okay. So Maithili has closed 20 positions in 6 days. All right. But afterwards, after 2 months only, okay, 10% have gone away. And after another month or two, we found that 30% are bad, are not up to the quality. Then after another 30%, then they were actually, underperformers. So what do you think? Do you think Maithili as a recruiter has actually, recruited the best people?
No.
Nope.
But I have only, but why will see? Maithili will say, you only told me 20 positions, 60 days. So I focused on what?
Completing the,
The quantity.
I focused on quantity,
but
right?
not quality. Yeah.
Not quality. So do you think it becomes very, very important that I should give this recruiter even what are the metrics of quality? Then she will focus on quality as well. Okay. Now, so when we talk about pay for performance, I can also have it at an individual level. I can also have it at what else? Team level. I can have it at a unit level. I can have it at a location level. And also at a organization level, right?
Yeah.
Got it? All this? So at an individual level, you will have individual goals, targets, etc. And you will also have metrics. Like, for example, on the shop floor, you can have for a worker, how many units he has to produce, how many products he has to generate, and you will give him all the metrics or the performance indicators. At a team level, say, for example, you're doing coding as a project, then you will also give them in what timelines, etc. At a unit level and a location level also, you have something called what? In manufacturing organizations, we use this term. Has anybody heard this?
Gain sharing.
Have you heard this?
Profit sharing, it's called. No?
Profit sharing, is it profit sharing?
So there's a difference between gain sharing and profit sharing.
Profit sharing.
So gain sharing is more at an operational level. That means month on month, how much of productivity have you done at a unit level or location? So essentially, why are you having this variable pay plan of gain sharing, which takes care of the entire unit so that you can increase the productivity of that unit and you know that a lot of collaboration is required. Okay. And all the operational metrics in terms of resources, time, everything is captured there, metrics, and you have to achieve. Now, productivity index looking at the past 3 or 4 years, you will say, hey, anything above X amount, then will be shared between all the employees of that unit or location. So what will I do? Hey, if I work, then I can also get this. So the top performers will in fact ensure that even the low performers are able to raise their bar. They will help them. There'll be collaboration. There'll be teamwork. Are you with me, guys? Huh?
Yes.
Gain sharing. Now, somebody said, so this is an operational kind of a goal. So at an organization level, you can also have a variable pay plan, which is called profit sharing. Okay. Now, profit sharing is what? That is at the end of the year, when the organization has made its profits. Hey, we have made profits and this is the cutoff. So 5 to 10%, I can actually then share it with my employees across all levels. So a certain percentage based on maybe the base salary or a level is then shared across the organization. So 1 year, because the profits are very high, you may get a higher share of the profit. And 1 year you have not even made any profit, so you may not even get any sharing of because you made losses. Very clear? Huh? So at an organization level. So at an organization level also, you'll have some goals in terms of revenue, product, productivity, profits, etc. So that you have made. So at an organization level, typically it will be financial measures. At a gain sharing level, it will be more of an operational level, productivity, etc. Those measures. So are you seeing emphasizing on what will be measured at every level? Hey guys, are you with me? So at
Yes.
an individual level, so all of this can be short term. Short term. So when I say short term, that means what? That means payable within a
Short
year.
term.
Huh?
Monthly or
There's
it is quarterly.
There's a period,
Yes.
right? So at an individual level, I can pay it at a monthly basis, at a little higher. So maybe at a quarterly or
Quarterly.
6 months, or like profit sharing annually. So all these are also called short-term incentives. Any questions here, guys? Before I actually then go back to my PowerPoint. Any questions here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the most interesting thing in a variable pay plan is that you need to, as a compensation expert, you need to differentiate. Hey, first of all, I may be doing a high percentage of variable pay plan, but is there scope for the person to what? Stretch. If you recall in my first session, I gave you 2 examples. Okay, I'll give you, interestingly, is there a recruiter here? Recruiter. Okay. A recruiter, if he performs very well, he can actually close a good number of volume of good number of positions, right? So there is if he stretches himself, thinks about it very innovatively, he can perform and he can actually then achieve the goals. What about a payroll person? Because since Sagar is here, if I have a high percentage of payroll, okay, high percentage in your salary for payroll, do you think there is a scope or for you to stretch in order to get that variable pay? Sagar?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
Hmm.
Yes?
Yes, yes.
Vis-a-vis the recruiter?
Same.
So let us look at the payroll function. So what would be the typical metrics for a payroll person?
पेरोल प्रोसेसिंग आना चाहिए, नॉलेज होना चाहिए.
No, metrics. Knowledge is required input. So when I said, what does a payroll person do? He actually gets all the
Processing the
inputs
salary.
from all the businesses,
Yes.
inputs in terms of what the salary, base salary, how much they have made, what are those deductions you have to do, and typically uses a payroll software Okay. So
Good.
what will be his metric? Typically 0 errors.
Okay.
Metric means measure.
Oh,
Okay. You
Yes.
talked about knowledge, Sagar. So
Okay.
what I'm saying, how will your job be evaluated? It will be evaluated on the number of, what I would say as, your payroll, when you release it, everybody should be getting 100% accurate check.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't
within
it?
a time.
Otherwise,
Yes, sir,
you'll
within
put
a
a
time.
help desk and all of them will come and keep, what is this? Why did you deduct on this? This is not accurate, right?
Right.
So accuracy.
Accuracy.
So at best, yes, you are getting the data. So if I put 30% as your variable pay, but there is no scope in your job.
Hmm.
So I can have a minimum, say for example, so that 10%, etc. But whereas a recruiter, if I put even about, say for example, a 25% percentage of his salary as a variable pay, if he's a very good recruiter, higher the variable pay, he will be motivated to do more volume hiring.
Yes.
Got it? But
Yeah.
whereas in a payroll position, I can't do much.
Yes.
Again, I gave you two examples of one example is a sales guy, in a grocery shop,
Hmm.
and a sales LIC agent.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you design as a compensation and benefit person in your organization, just designing variable pay plans is not good enough. You also have to check whether there is scope for that job to stretch.
Yes.
For example, most of the HR jobs, we say, hey, ma'am, why are you giving us only, there is no scope for a variable pay at all. So obviously, I cannot put high 50, 20%, 30%. Okay. But for a sales guy, if I put only 10%, will he have the motivation will he be incentivized to go and sell? He'll say, Paisa bhi 90%, I'm getting fixed salary. Why should I go out and sell? Okay, I will do once in a while. But typically, if you notice 60 to 40, the base salary will be just about 60%, and the variable pay will be 40%. Why? They will be motivated to sell. And also in terms of, if I sell a Ferrari, I'll get more. If I sell another car, how much? So that's how the variable pay plan is designed. Okay, guys, any questions here? None?
Nirmal, I just have a quick question here.
Yeah, please.
I think when you talk about variable pay and incentivizing people, especially those under sales recruitment, yes, but there are, so for instance, US is such a geography that focuses more on base pay, though they have heavy target incentives. So is that something where it all depends on the geography and the statutory norms that you have? I mean, you focus more or give importance to base pay to be higher than the variable pay. Is it geography to geography, or is it mostly, based on job? Because when I observed, even salespeople, they make heavy incentives, but their base pay is always
Very less.
higher
Always.
than.
No. Base page is always less.
No,
Okay,
in
here
US,
is it. Let me tell you, in US, the variable pay is over and above the base pay. Okay, a standard. That's the pay mix. Here, when you say 25 lakhs as my salary, it could be a pay mix of both fixed pay and the variable pay, right? But in US, when you talk about variable pay, it's over and above the base pay. Now, wherever it is, base pay itself is guaranteed and it is based on the job evaluation. So for every job, they were, yeah. But if you look at sales, yeah. Maithili, was that Maithili or someone else? So please, hey, somebody, please, can you mute that? Okay. So whoever asked me that question, if you look at salaries of salespeople, their mixes will be different. Are you with me, Maithili?
Yeah,
Huh?
I am. Yes.
Their pay mix will be different. But, okay, because I deal with a lot of global compensation. So I know, and specifically with US. All right. So their way of elements, their compensation structuring is a little different. Okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
having said that, as I said, but this fundamentally remains the same. Your base salary
Hmm.
is evolved out of job evaluation, and
Yes.
there, because of the pay equity, they have a pay equity law as well. So
Hmm.
therefore, it's very, very important for them to establish the worth of the job and then establish the base salaries. They
Hmm.
cannot pay high, low, nothing of the kind. You
Right.
can't say, in X organization, you will pay this much, in Y organization. So they are very, very particular about it. Okay. All right. Okay. But if you want to know more about it, please, you can call me offline and talk about it.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Ma'am, this is Atindra here. I am having one small question. Hello?
Atindra. Yes, Atindra. Please
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. What is the what is the difference between base pay and basic pay?
Very interesting question. And that means you must have missed out on. Okay. So when I say base, okay. I don't want to go to. Okay. I will just, yeah, I think that's a good question. And I don't know how many of you know that. Anybody who can give me an understanding, because then it's very important that everybody know about it. Yeah.
Base pay means
Base.
monthly gross salary, whereas basic pay means it's a part of monthly gross salary on which all standard compliance are getting calculated, like PF, gratuity, bonus, everything.
You're close. Okay. So I just put it here. Okay. Basic. Now, Atindra, base salary is that salary which also can be called as. Okay, Atindra. Okay.
Yeah.
Fixed
Yeah.
pay. Now, how is it evolved? Through job evaluation, where we have talked about it. Now, say for example, you have 50,000 as your, which we are coming to, but I will just give you a little understanding because you asked this question. 50,000 is your salary per month. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is your base salary, fixed pay. But if I pay the entire amount as 150,000, what will happen to your take home salary?
Basic is 50% on that 50, and then HRA is there.
No, no. So
25,000.
what will happen if I give you 50,000 as a lump sum? Then you won't get 50,000. You'll only get 30% will be taxed straight away.
Yes,
Right?
and
So,
12%
but
PF.
in order to have some tax, to take the advantage of those tax exemptions which the government has given, because they know that for housing you will incur something, even social security there is there. So this base salary is then further divided into certain components, which is called compensation structuring. Got it? Huh?
Okay.
Compensation structuring is nothing but getting the right kind of component so that your take home increases. Okay. So that's how basic is a percentage of base salary, because for the purpose of taxation, typically, depending on if you are in a metro or a tier 3, whatever. So 30% of your
50,000.
30 to 50%. We have the payroll expert also. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, Atindra. The further
Okay,
on, I will
okay,
tell you
okay.
later.
Okay.
Now, all the other HRA, everything is based on this basic, because
Basic.
even your statutory social security like PF, gratuity, etc., because there are certain kind of tax exemptions on that. And also statutory wise, it's all calculated on the basic. Got it?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, let me quickly run through so that I have given you the broad. Now, so I spoke about all this hardship, performance incentives, merit pay for extra skills, market linked intention, linked incentive bonus. Got it? Now, when we talk about deferred pay, what does it mean? That means, you are paying at a later point of time. Like, for example, stock purchases, ESOPs. Okay, you're getting it after some time. Then retention bonuses. If you stay for 3 years, 5 years, you get your retention bonus. You don't get anything if you leave before that time. Okay, annuity is what? Annuity plans, people who are at a middle level and a top level, they are actually at a high salary. They get a high salary. In order to save their salary, which goes off as tax deduction, I can actually factor that as an annuity plan where it will be invested. So that's like something like a superannuation. It's called annuity. This is for the purposes of saving tax. Because if I just get, instead of getting that as tax deducted, I can then use the same amount to invest it. Okay. Now, so we talked about all this piecework, standard, merit, sales commissions, etc., which are at an individual level. Please just give me a thumbs up. This is only to reiterate because you have to do quickly an exercise. Then we talked about gain sharing and team award bonuses, right? We also talked about profit sharing, ESOPs, etc. Okay, great, great. I'm assuming I'm just running through. I gave you a brief explanation. Now I'm just taking you through. So this is just at an individual level. If you see, piecework, standard hour plan, number of hours, merit pay, performance bonuses, sales commissions. Then we are talking about gain sharing, where it helps you to increase the productivity. Okay. Essentially, it's an operational kind of a variable pay plan. Then when we are talking about profit sharing, to improve productivity, to retain employees, to improve services quality, etc. Okay. Now, when we talked about skills, we talked about merit skills, cross-skilling, upskilling. We can also talk about broadening skills, depending on, I told you, nature of industry, whether you want horizontal skills, whether you want vertical skills, or you want in-depth skills, depending on your strategy, depending on your own skill audit, the kind of skills you want, then you are creating a skill-based incentive plan to acquire all this. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Now here, like I also talked about IT skills today, organizations are also looking at IT skills. So I'm going to send you a very interesting article by SHRM. It's a PDF of many pages, which will talk to you in depth, in detail about what the skill-based plan is and how do you go about. Okay. Since, we have just 3 hours time, we can't do much here. Now, I only want to take you to one thing. So typically what happens traditionally in manufacturing organizations or even IT. Say, can you see my cursor here? Huh? Say,
Yeah.
for example, these are the list of what technologies you want. Okay. These are the list of technologies, and artificial intelligence becomes very, very important, or COBOL maybe it becomes important. So what do you do typically? Then whether the person has an experience or not, if he has, then you are giving actually a higher salary and putting him into a higher level, higher pay band traditionally. But today what is happening in progressive organizations now, they don't do that. The guy remains in the same level. So if you are, see, if you have taken a specific software, artificial intelligence means this when you start. So I actually do not increase your pay band, but I actually incentivize you. Why? The base pay remains the same, but I give you more incentives based on the number of stars. Is this clear? This is called a progressive approach. Okay. Yeah. So we talked about short-term incentives, mid-term incentives, long-term incentives. All these are what, when you say an incentive, please be very, very clear. The fundamental principle is, what is the goal? Is it immediate? So that means you must have a short term. Like for example, a call center guy, he has to make number of calls. He should not drop them. There should be a quality in the call, the way he takes. So short term. So it depends on what are the organization's goals at an individual level. And so based on that, you can actually create your short-term incentives, mid-term incentives, long-term. For example, long-term incentives, you want people in an R&D organization to stay for a longer time. Okay. So what do you do in an R&D? There are milestones to create some product R&D. So you will say, we will give you employee stock options so that the person will stay for a longer time. We will give you equity. Are you very clear?
Yes.
I'm actually giving you a thumb rule, the fundamental principle or the design principle, on which these variable pay plans work. And then in the design, you need to be very clear about what you want to achieve. The goals, are they immediate? long term. Then, having said that, when you achieve the goals, you have to have certain kind of measures, predetermined measures. That means metrics. How do you want that goal to be achieved? So that you can actually what? Evaluate. Because if you don't have goals, how will you measure them and how will you evaluate them? Very clear, guys? Okay. Give me a thumbs up so that I can just. Also, I want to tell you that there are sometimes variable pay plan need not be only these short-term incentive, etc. If you know, if you look at most of these IT organization, ITS, there is something called an R&R. You have spot awards. You can give them in cash. You can give them in kind. They are listless. You get merchandise. You get what some tickets for watching movies or going. You can go and have what is it? A meal outside, meal tickets, etc. These are other ways of, these are also variable pay plans, okay? But these are all spot awards. For a good suggestion, you get immediate a cash reward. Any examples? Now, having said that, like project allowance, some people get project allowance. Here, you cannot say you are going to get, 50% if you have completed 90% of the project. So there are certain things like, for example, a project allowance. You get it or you don't get it. If you have finished the project on time within those specific requirements, then, those measures you get it. Otherwise, you don't get it. Unlike the pay for performance plans, where if you have done 120, you get certain amount, 150, you get certain amount. Okay, guys? Yep. Okay. Now, quickly, I think everybody has. Okay. Now, can you just take a snapshot of this, guys? Quickly, this is a very interesting thing, and just take a snapshot, and I'm going to take you through some of the steps of designing a variable pay plan, and then you'll have to actually design one. Okay. Now what are the steps for designing a pay plan? Let me quickly, I have the handout, but let me just quickly give you a basic thumbs up rule so that you are very, very clear about it. Okay. What are some of the design considerations you will do when you're designing a pay plan? Anybody? One, intent. What is that? Intent. So when I say intent, what do I mean by that? Intent. Huh?
What is the pay for? What is the intent that you're paying X amount of?
Exactly. The purpose. Can I say purpose?
Yes.
Huh? Okay. But then why do I want to know the purpose? Because if I know the purpose, I can link it up to my goal, what I want to achieve, right? Huh? But if I don't even know the purpose, then I cannot really link it up to where am I wanting to go? What is the goal? What is my achievement? So I'm able to link it up to the goal, and these goals, immediate goals, can also be linked to the organization goals. Very clear? So now this purpose can be, intent can be what all? It could be functional. Can it be functional purpose? It can also be from the HR perspective. It also can be from the behavioral perspective. Okay. So depending on for whom, which level, which target group you want to really design the variable pay plan, you must be very clear about the intent or the purpose. Say, for example, I'm designing a variable pay plan for salespeople. So typically, what will be my intent? Please, guys, rapid fire. Please. Yeah. What will be my intent? Huh?
Complete the sale within time.
Targets.
Target.
Right? Increasing the revenue by increasing my sales. Okay. And also how many customer calls have I done, but how many I actually have achieved. So functional aspect, revenue. From the HR, maybe I'll look at some kind of, collaboration, teamwork, behavior, maybe, polite, customer sensitivity, customer centric, etc., etc. You are in sync with me? Agreement? Okay.
Yes.
2. I also have to look at, hey, if I'm going to design this plan, for which levels, right? Huh? What levels am I going to look at? Which level are they? Right? Is it across all the levels, all the grades? Huh? Which level? So level 1, level 2, level 3, or is it entry level? Is it senior level? Is it top level? Because my variable pay plans can differ from level to level, uh, depending on the kind of seniority or tenuity target group. So that's very, very important. Who is to be involved? Which levels? Third, what amount? What is the percentage? What is the percentage of variable pay I want? Okay. Can it be the same across all levels? If I'm doing for an entry level, my
No.
percentage will be what? Huh?
Percentage will be
Less or
different.
more? It can be just about, say, 10%. Huh? If I'm doing it for a middle level, it can be a little more. Say it can be 20%. For top management,
60 plus.
absolutely. It can be anything 50% above. Why? Why did somebody say, hey, 50% above? Because the circle of influence and the control is higher at a higher level, but at an entry level, it is much lesser. Got it? So I also have to be very, very clear when I'm designing what percentage of variable pay will I have. So that very clear that this target group can achieve to this extent. When I tell a call center guy, hey, 10% of your salary is a variable pay, you can actually earn up to this 10%, which can translate into maybe 5,000 or 10,000, etc. Very clear about this? Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, fourth, very important. I do everything, but then I don't have what? Performance criteria. Is it important?
Yes.
Yes.
Then what will happen if I don't have performance criteria? I will achieve, but how will I evaluate? Right?
Yes.
Right.
So performance criteria can be what? Various aspects. Can it be financial?
Yes.
Huh? Then one second. What are the other?
Skill based.
It can also be satisfactions, levels. Huh? It can be, if you are actually depending on it, some behaviors, right? Then productivity. So depending on what kind of what is that variable pay plan you have, you can have different criteria. And this performance criteria also depends on what levels you are doing, right? Okay. Now, fifth. Okay, you have done everything, but don't you think from where will the money come? Funding? Huh? I've had a fantastic variable plan, but where is the money coming from? So, say for example, I will say, hey, all the people who are there, 100%, attendance, I will give them an incentive, but then I'll have to create some kind of a pool for it. So funding can come from some kind of a pool which you have made, or funding can also come from where? From the revenue generated. Or you are saying, hey, I'm going to cut my costs in compensation and then give them as variable pay. So there are various ways of funding it. Is it important funding?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. And the next one, administration. Very important. No?
Mm.
How are you going to, people who are probationers, People, is there a cutoff line? People who are on maternity benefits, people who are on loss of pay. So all these things come into play when you are going to administer. So the policy, variable pay policy should be very, very clear on that. Okay. Then nevertheless, one more. Your payout plan. Whether you're going to play monthly, half yearly, quarterly, or yearly, depending on what kind of a variable pay plan it is, and depending also on the level. Because typically for top management, when do you pay? At the end of the year, profit sharing, right? But for a call center guy, a monthly incentive.
Monthly
So you
basis.
pay it on a monthly basis. Okay. So you have to decide on your payout plan. And the last but not the least,
Disbursement.
don't you think it needs evaluation? Whether it's working for you? No? How will you evaluate? Vis-a-vis your what? How will you evaluate the plan? Vis-a-vis the intent or the purpose? Have you achieved whatever you wanted? Right? Just take a photograph of this. Now I'm going to give you what all, a small exercise. Now, this case, this is a retail shop selling handsets. Okay. Now, this shop has 20 salespeople, if you see, and it has one sales manager. It also has a assistant manager warehouse and one administrative officer and a one office boy. The admin guy and the office boy report into the assistant manager, while the sales people report into the sales manager. And even the AM and the admin officer, office boy, all of them report into the sales manager. Okay. Now, what is the intent? They have to increase the market share. They have to increase the sales volume. They have to increase the quality of handsets. Now, they also have a combination of handsets. One are the branded and the other is the non-branded. Now, the branded handsets have a higher margin, non-branded, while the branded have a lower margin. So they also have to have a right kind of a product mix. Okay. Now, so because of low revenue, they have to increase the footfall. All right. Now they have to increase teamwork. There's also a huge attrition of good salespeople. Then there is lack of customer centricity. Now, you as the HR head, I want you to design a variable incentive plan for salespeople and also for the admin guys. How will you do? Okay. Now, and what is that you need to do? I'm going to give you Excel format so that you don't get lost. All right.
Sorry, Nimla, could you please repeat the ask again? What is it that we need to achieve out of this?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll just show. So what you need to do is you have to design a variable incentive plan. Okay. For this retail store. And who all are there? Salespeople are there, sales manager is there, assistant manager is there, administrator officer is there, and office boy. And what is the goal? You have to increase revenue, right? Increase productivity, which is actually revenue, right? And then from the HR front also, there's lack of teamwork, there is attrition, okay? And there's not much of customer centricity, etc. So just take a picture of this. So you need to design an incentive plan. But don't worry, you might be scared as to how will I go about. I will give you a what? A small Excel sheet framework to work on. How do you need to do it? Now, how will you do this? So I want you to do it in this Excel format in 4 steps. Step 1 will be the intent. Please write 2 or 3 functional intents, which is very clear there. Okay. Product mix, increasing of sales, etc. Write 2 or 3 intents for HR. I wrote as MAR, motivation, attraction, and retention. So write 2 or 3 intents. And please write as A, B, C, D, E, F, so that I'll tell you why. Okay, that is the intent or the purpose you are writing from the functional perspective, from the HR perspective. Step 2, eligibility. When I said eligibility, first of all, list out who are the people. In sales, you have sales manager, you have sales people. In support, you have what? Warehouse manager, admin guy, you have office boy. Now, how much? I talked about what is that, I talked about what percentage, how much of your base salary you want to give. So for salespeople, say for example, you want to do 30% or 40%. For support people, you want to do 5% or 10% or 15%. I'll leave it to you. Okay, that's much. Next, step 3. Now, just like if you notice in a proficiency level, you have to divide it into only 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. Say, for example, I have achieved A, B, C, D, E, F, less than 50%. What will you give them? How much will you give? Okay. Less than then less than 80%, less than 90%. So you're creating at level 1, level 2, level 3, just like those bars saying, if you have achieved this much, you get this much of variable pay. If you have achieved this much, you will get this much of variable pay. I also want you to get a clue. When you're writing support staff, now, will they be directly be responsible with the sales? They are indirectly responsible. So maybe you can say their incentive will be not as per the incentive plan, but maybe as a percentage of base salary. Okay? Because they are not directly responsible for the sales. So I'll leave it to your discretion. And I'm sure all of you are having some variable pay plans even in your organization. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, very important. Payment only. When will you pay? Will you pay monthly? Will you pay quarterly, yearly, or annually? And why? Is it for only 3, motivation or retention or attraction? So just add that M or A or R. Like for example, again, another clue. If I'm paying every month, it is actually for motivation. But if I'm paying at the end of the year, it is for retention. Okay. And so it can be motivation and attraction month on month I'm going to give. Okay, guys, very clear? Any questions before you get into groups? Very interesting. Please take a snapshot of this. Okay. You can't really, hold it up, but at least if you do this, you will be able to kind of, design your variable pay plans in your organization, and you will get the fundamental principles of it. All right. And I want you all to do it within how much time? Let's see. 30 minutes.
Okay.
20 minutes. See, we will range it between 20 and 30. Okay. We won't push you, but yeah, I want you all to really act faster. Both the groups. Okay. Now, can one of the group please showcase your work and also talk about it? Please present it. This was group 2, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So who is presenting it?
Sagar Sawan.
Okay, Sagar. Yeah, Sagar.
बेसिकली यहाँ पे 2 ब्रांड है जैसे आपने बोले थे, तो एक ब्रांडेड है और एक नॉन ब्रांडेड है. तो नॉन ब्रांडेड है उसमें 25% हमने मार्जिन रखा है टारगेट, और क्वांटिटी वाइज भी रखा है कि अगर आप 50 के ऊपर महीने में बेचते हो,
ओके, तो
कंपनी को प्रॉफिट 1 लाख रुपया हो जाएगा. और यहाँ पे भी मोबाइल पर कॉस्ट भी लिखा है कि मोबाइल का दोनों का कॉस्ट है, एक का 10,000 है, एक का 7,000 है. तो उसमें प्रॉफिट मार्जिन हमने दोनों में, एक में 1,000 रुपया, एक में 2,000 रुपया है.
गॉट इट.
तो उनको क्लियर हो जाएगा कि भाई मुझे 50 पीस बिकने के बाद मुझे 1,000 रुपया यानी इतना परसेंटेज मिलेगा. परसेंटेज और पर पीस क्लियरली लिखा है कि 1,000 रुपया आपको उसमें मिल जाएगा. तो यानी प्रॉफिट बेस है,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
परसेंटेज मिल जाएगा.
बढ़िया.
तो उसमें क्राइटेरिया भी
तो
रखा है।
एक इंटेंट है कि नंबर ऑफ पीसेस सोल्ड विद
हाँ।
मिक्स, प्रोडक्ट मिक्स के साथ। डन।
यस यस यस।
ओके डन।
तो ये सेकंड अभी बिहेवियर के हिसाब से एम्प्लॉय अगर अच्छा काम कर रहा है, उसका नेचर अच्छा है, जैसे कि हम लोग अभी कभी दुकान में जाते हैं तो दो अगर वहां पे कोई बेच रहा है तो उसका फेस देख के हम लोग नहीं इसके पास नहीं जाएंगे, इसके पास जाते हैं, तो उसके लिए भी बिहेवियर है। तो गुड, एक्सेलेंट और ये सब रखे हैं, तो वो भी मायने रखता है। सेल्स तो है
ठीक
ही,
है ठीक
सेल्स
है।
में
So before you go to that other one second, you can evaluate, you can measure numbers, ये जो branded नॉन ब्रांडेड है, तो इसको कैसा मेजर करेंगे बिहेवियर को? आपने तो
बिहेवियर को
रेटिंग स्केल लिख दिया, एक्सेलेंट,
हाँ,
गुड, नॉन
नॉन
सैटिस्फैक्टरी।
सेटिस्फैक्टरी।
हाँ, but how will you evaluate? So what will be the tool or technique you will use?
वेयर
Whether they are doing excellent, good or satisfactory in all these three areas.
हाँ, उसमें अभी मनो इसमें भी हम लोग चाहिए तो परसेंटेज दे सकते हैं कि
नहीं
अगर
नहीं,
एक्सीलेंट।
percentage नहीं. I'll tell you
हाँ,
what I'm talking about. कि say for example I'm using a satisfaction survey. जैसे
हाँ,
वहां पे बोलते हैं ना कस्टमर्स को, सब आप
भरने के लिए। हाँ
1 2 3 भर दीजिएगा, 1 पे लगा दीजिए, 2 पे, so 1 stands for this. तो जितने सारे लोग हैं उन्होंने जिस पे लगाया, then you will collate and look
हाँ
at the data. So that is
ओके
what I'm asking for. ठीक है?
यस या यस।
Got it? Okay. Done. Yeah, carry on.
तो मेजरमेंट में भी यहाँ पे L1 L2 L3 L4 ये जो हमने लिखे हैं तो
Okay.
ऑफिस
आपने
बॉय से
4
लेकर
levels रख लिया for all those sales people. Okay, done.
सेल्स
ठीक है,
पीपल
सेल्स के
ज्यादा
लिए 50%, 30, 10%, 5%. एक्सीलेंट. बिहेवियर
और
के लिए ठीक है, या ठीक है.
5%
सो
एक्स्ट्रा
टिपिकली यहाँ पे क्या होता है ना, ऑफिस बॉय के लिए समटाइम्स वी डोंट लाइक टू डू इवन अ परसेंटेज. हम बोलते हैं लंप सम, क्योंकि उसका बहुत छोटा सा जॉब रहता है ना. Okay, but we still want him to collaborate and we still want to don't shut off the shutters fast, so और polite और पानी देने के लिए, so we
यस
सब good. Okay, now go to the step next. Yeah.
उसमें दोनों को ही 50-50% दिखा है क्योंकि मोटिवेशन और रिटेंशन ये दोनों इम्पोर्टेंट है। क्योंकि अगर नया कोई
अच्छा.
बंदा आता है तो वापस उसको सीखने में, वो सब करने में, समझने में, तो इसलिए हमने दोनों को 50-50% रखा है,
No, 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 no,
मोटिवेशन
no,
और
no, no, no. So what I meant was motivation retention है, 50-50% नहीं. So आप ये amount, once you have calculated the variable amount,
हाँ हाँ
X amount, now will you pay monthly? Will you pay quarterly? So for
मंथली
example, for an office boy, admin boy, sales people, I will pay monthly, which
Yes.
is for motivation. Because if I don't pay monthly, if I pay at the end of the year, that guy will just leave. He'll say, "Arey Baba, who is going to wait for that time?" Right? Huh? Maybe for a sales manager, I will say I'll make it 6 months, maybe half yearly, right? है ना? So at the end of year, maybe I'll create a bonus. I'll say, okay, this bonus for retention, I will pay at the end of the year. So that's
Yes.
what I meant.
Oh,
Okay.
ठीक है, understand.
But I think in general, please, I must, because this is such variable pay, aisa thodi banta, you will have to have a lot of time, but within a very small, brief time, you have really understood and designed an excellent pay plan, I must say. All of you should be applauded. I'm sure it's a group work.
Thank
So
you, ma'am.
great, guys. All of you can actually give excellent to your work. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Can we have the other group?
Yeah, 1 second. Okay, so is the screen legible? So we have just taken in step by step the intent.
No, you are showing me your job descriptions, homework, guys.
So sorry, I had.
So I was wondering, you've done a good job of your job descriptions.
Okay, let's try this again. Where do I go? Okay. Yeah, how about now?
Yeah.
Right, so step 1, we've got our intent. We'd like to look into sales volume, the market share, controlling attrition, and also training our staff, especially salespeople, in communications, so that the customer centricity and that behavioral aspect is also factored in. So that's step one. And others, please feel free to chime in. So we've all just collectively come up
Okay.
to this. So step two is again with the positions. We want all of them to actually be eligible because they're all still members or employees of our organization. So starting with sales people or sales staff, we want to have a monthly target so that they are kept motivated. Sales managers, we were thinking in terms of keeping it annual for retention because sales manager is important from the point of leadership and maintaining the sales staff to control what the targets are. So, but we did change this to quarterly again. And then admin and office, we are just targeting something to a minuscule level at an annual.
No, let me just tell you, admin and office boys are very low level jobs. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you make it annual, how does it motivate them? Look at it. If you get something, monthly, month on month, low level, always low level jobs
Nirmala, we
like to
can
have
see-
something. Yeah. And give them an additional bonus later on, but something on a monthly basis, right? Think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, this could be monthly itself.
And HR, rightly so, they will only get quarterly or biannually. Because they are not, operational people, they are support.
Because always
Okay.
and
And
then
warehouse also, I'm okay with it, biannual or even quarterly. Okay.
okay, and then we've just spread out the percentages for these.
Percentages. Okay. This is
So-
that measurement criteria. Done.
Correct. Yeah. So manager levels is 70 is the minimum threshold to achieve. I think Jagmohan, you mentioned you suggested that we get in the threshold and percentages,
Yeah.
right?
So Nirmala, what we were thinking is that we should have a threshold limit for each target, basically. So if it is sales,
So-
so if you're not achieving 70%, then there will be a zero payout. But if you are achieving 70%, so it is the level one. They will achieve 70%. If it is
Some
say
amount,
70
right?
to 80%,
Yeah.
they will get maybe up to 90%. But if they achieve more than that, it can range from 100 to 120% for sales and sales people, basically. For the people
Sure.
who are into the other functions, we can restrict it to 100 or 110%.
Sure. So this is like, minimum requirement of performance. And
Yeah.
thereafter, then over and above in terms of, percentages, then if you achieve, then you get just like,
Exactly.
when you're doing a merit rating, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your rating scale. So when you do 1, you don't even get anything. 2 also very minimal. So 3 is average,
Yeah.
where you get your annual performance bonus I'm talking about, right? Okay,
Right.
done. Yeah, agreed.
And then this is just our criteria, the percentage criteria. If once they achieve the threshold of it,
So this is what your threshold you have put. Okay.
right. And then for funding, we've just hypothetically assumed that 1% from profit is to be allocated to this framework.
Okay.
Um,
See,
and then-
typically, I'll tell you what funding here, the revenue generated itself will actually, normally what happens, operational variable pay plans are funded by their revenue generation only. Okay.
Okay.
Because if you increase sales and then they'll be funded by those pay plans. Because if you are actually pulling out from the kitty, that means you'll go into a loss actually.
All right. Okay. So
Okay.
kitty meaning whatever is in the pool, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for administration, we've just a piece where we can exclude people who are on leave of absence or sabbatical or
Essentially, what I was wanting is just 4 steps. But anyway, nevertheless, good. So let us go to step 7.
yeah. Step 7 is just again the payout frequency for these people that we came out with on based on the threshold. For sales manager, we want a quarterly payout. Sales people, we need a monthly payout. Admin and office, as you said, monthly makes more sense. And
Yeah,
then
because they're at a very low level, you see.
right. And then warehouse and HR would be biannual or quarter.
See, so the payout also should correlate with what you really want to achieve. For example, if you actually look at all of you, if you can reflect on your own variable pay plans in your organization. Why do we have variable pay plans? It is, I put it like motivation, attraction, and retention. Okay. Now, hire the ability to make more money, right? Can attract top performance. You say, hey, we can get really more bonuses. If I so, motivation, attraction, right? You also want to retain good people. Then you will also create some kind of a variable pay plan at the end of the year. You won't give it month on month. So essentially, that is why payouts are also important based on what exactly you really want. For example, there are top performers, okay, and people are all the time looking at for top performers, wanting to poach them. So if you want to retain them, you want to give them at the end of the year something. Okay, maybe you will create a 10% of what they have done as a special bonus, etc. So this is what is called, when I talk about variable pay plan, depends on what you really want to achieve. I always say begin with the end in mind. So unless and until the goals are very, very clear, what exactly are they and why do you want them? Are you wanting to motivate them, attract them, retain them? Then the entire the detailing of the variable plan depends on this. Think about it. And I would actually recommend all of you to go back, look at just one or two variable pay plans, what you have in your organization. Don't look at an HR plan where, as per the salary, 10% of your base is variable pay. No, don't look at that. Look at some operational variable pay plans. Then dig into these details and see, are they working for us or not working for us? Okay. There are all of them. All right. Okay, welcome back. Okay, we have very little time and so what now we have learned about internal equity, external equity, and individual equity. Now we are looking at compensation structuring. So before even I talk about compensation structuring, let me just ask you a question. Is it very important for organization to break up the salary, or can I give a lump sum salary? Can I give lump sum salaries? Yes or no? Quick.
Lump sum as in just the
Can I
direct.
give just, yeah, if the person has to be given 50,000 rupees, can I give just one lump sum amount? You take it.
The breakup is required because to get some benefit in tax.
So there'll be a very big tax dent. All right, great. Okay. Can I have the same salary structure across the globe for my organization?
Won't be feasible. It would be too rigid.
Only feasible. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
So different,
So
different countries are having different rules, I think. So it's not.
yeah, yes, correct. Okay, let me respond to the first question, that is lump sum salary. If I am going to do a lump sum salary, then a tax, there will be a very high dent for the employee. Okay, then other than that, how will you comply with the statutory norms, which will be very high again? Provident fund, gratuity, etc. And who is responsible to deduct tax? It's the employer, right? So how
Right,
will
ma'am.
you do all that? So it's very, very important that you break up the salary into components, because simply put, compensation structuring is what that you want to break it into components so that you are complying with the statutory regulations and also ensuring that the employee gets the maximum net salary. That's important. You may give a large figure when he is being recruited, but at the end of the day, at the end of the month, he's getting such less salary and he's not satisfied. Okay, so it's very, very important for a competent person to understand how can he actually design the components of this compensation structure in such a way that the employee gets the maximum benefit. So typically when you look at the components of a compensation structure, if you can actually see my screen, these are the components. You get a fixed component, reimbursement, non-monetary or perks, what we call them, deferred payments, and retirement benefits. Most of the organizations components fit into this.
Yes.
Can you reflect on this and will you say yes, most of your organizations have similar kind of things? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So when we talked about, so typically, so when I'm wanting to design my compensation structure, so what will I look at? Somebody, Atindra asked, base salary. So that fixed amount has to be then designed in such a way that it also takes into consideration the tax exemptions. In India, for that matter, typically a basic is kept at 40 to 50% to get the maximum optimum advantage of the tax, because all this house rent, which is an exemption for tax and all this is calculated on the basic. Okay. So these are some of the norms. House rent can be 50 to 40%, metro, other cities, conveyance again this much for and education. You also get apart from education, hostel allowance, etc. All right.
Yeah. Right.
Then reimbursements, like for example, Sodexo. You know why do you give Sodexo? Because it has a tax exemption. Okay. Huh? And then reimbursements, do they have tax component on them? Payroll person should say, do you deduct tax on reimbursements?
Oh, no. Absolutely
No,
not.
because reimbursements, the word reimbursement means the amount spent for the purpose of organization, right?
Yes.
Travel for organization, a hotel for organization. Okay. Anything you spend for the purpose of organization's benefit, then you will say, please. But if you don't produce a bill, then you cannot claim the amount.
Amount. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then some of the non-monetary perks are these, if you have noticed: car, accommodation, ESOPs, medical, LTA, telephone, vehicle, etc. These are all those non-monetary. Then in terms of retirals, I'm sure all of you are familiar with PF, gratuity, superannuation, pensions, etc. Okay. Yeah, some of the useful points from the, from the compensation structuring, very important. Minimum Wages Act, your basic should not be much lesser than the minimum wages. Okay. And also, if there are any union agreements, you have to comply with those union agreements if you have a recognized union there. And like, for example, in government, there is something called the dearness allowance as well, which has to be taken into consideration with the basic. Now, there is something called a special allowance in your components. All of you will have that. What is that special allowance? Is it a special allowance or what is it?
एक्चुअली वो स्पेशल अलाउंस दिया जाता है क्योंकि कुछ भी एडजस्टमेंट हो तो वो हम लोग वो स्पेशल अलाउंस में देते हैं, क्योंकि वो एम्प्लॉय का हो जाता है, उस पर टैक्स डिडक्ट होता है. बेसिकली बेसिक में अगर हम लोग बढ़ाते हैं तो वो कंपनी का भी 12% जाता है, तो वो स्पेशल
अलाउंस. दिस स्पेशल अलाउंस, इट इज योर सैलरी, इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ योर फिक्स्ड अमाउंट. ओके. एंड when you have allocated into various components and still some amount is left, that is put under the component called special allowance and it is taxable.
Taxable,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All variable pay plans are taxable.
Taxable.
Everything, bonus, everything, whatever you get is taxable, except for gift allowance of 5,000 maximum. Right?
Right.
Okay. Now, when we talk about compensation structures, there are something like traditional structure, flexible structure, evolved structure. Initially, in the olden times, when you have traditional structure, all the components were very rigid. An employee did not have flexibility to opt. What is opt? The choice. But today you have the choice. So when we talk about flexible compensation structure, anybody who can give me a lead point on that? What do I mean? Flexible compensation structure. What is the first thing they do when you get onboarded? I'm sure Sagar Sawant must be doing from the payroll department. He will say, hey, these are statutory components you have to comply with. There is no choice in this. But then then other components, you have a choice. You can actually opt for whatever you want. So it's called a flexi basket, right?
Yeah, right.
And whatever you want. And if you don't opt, it will get taxed. LTA, if you don't opt, it will get taxed. You will get your salary, but it will get taxed.
Taxable, yes.
But if you opt for an LTA component, you will
Submit
get the
the
tax benefit.
Yes.
Hai na? Okay. So the driving point I want to make is every organization will also have a compensation structure based on their life cycle, because the focus, the goals are different when you are at the infancy stage, when you are at the growth stage, when you are at the maturity stage and renewal stage. What did I mean? Decline and renewal. The goals will be different, means the business goals, the organizational goals are different. When you're in a growth stage, you want to really make more revenue, more. So your pay mix also will be dependent on that. So you will have more of variable pay plans, etc. When you're in a maturity stage, you want to really mature all your processes, etc. That means maintenance mode. So you want to retain people, etc. Again, in a decline and a renewal, that means you are trying to go down. So at that point of time, again, you will keep your base salaries a little low, your incentives more, so that you are able to pay only when there is performance, productivity, etc. Okay, so during the organization's life cycle, your pay mixes, your compensation strategies can vary, because you want to motivate, attract, and also retain different kind of people. All right. Okay. So as I said, typically, the payouts, if you have noticed here, you get month-on-month salaries, and your variable pay plans, as rightly, demonstrated by you all during your breakout activity. It can be monthly, it can be biannual, it can be annual, it also can be quarterly. Okay. And I talked about the fixed basket. Okay. After looking at your statutory percentage, and then the rest of the amount you put it as a fixed flexible basket, and then you list out the various benefits you want to give, and they'll say, hey, this is the amount and these are the benefits. You have a choice. You can opt for whatever you want, so that the employee actually sees value in them. Right. Before I actually get into budgeting, so the only one question I want to one point I want to drive home, if you all are actually doing in the payroll, and you also have to do some amount of what is this compensation structuring, most important thing you have to actually keep in mind is, hey, how can I get the maximum for the employee, his take home? How can I increase it? So therefore, it's very important to look at what is mandatory, then ensure that all the compliances are done, and the rest of it, you should know the tax laws, so that there is tax benefits you are giving to him. And then, of course, the rest, wherever you have to pay tax. And at a global level, the salary components will differ, because the statutory laws, the compliances will vary from country to country. Okay. Any questions, guys? Maithili or Sagar, any questions on compensation budgeting? I'm sorry, compensation structuring?
No.
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 Okay.
नॉर्मली
Now
अभी ये
yeah.
सॉरी, अभी जो न्यू जनरेशन आ रहा है उसके
हाँ जी।
लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है कि उनको हाथ में कितना पैसा आता है, वो इम्पोर्टेंट है।
Exactly.
फ्यूचर के लिए
Exactly.
PF मेरा कटने दो या पेंशन आएगा, वो डोंट वरी, वो उनको नहीं चाहिए। तो उनके हिसाब से अभी न्यू जनरेशन के हिसाब से हमें वो स्ट्रक्चर डिजाइन करना पड़ता है कि एम्प्लॉय को दिखने के टाइम पे वो स्ट्रक्चर, वो सैलरी हाथ में, हाँ होगा, मेरा सैलरी 50,000 हाथ में आ रहा है, फ्यूचर का
Exactly.
उनको वरी नहीं।
Exactly.
तो आज के डेट में हम लोगों को वैसे स्ट्रक्चर डिजाइन करना पड़ रहा है। और आप कुछ साल पहले जाके 10 साल पहले, 15 साल पहले, तो वो स्ट्रक्चर टोटली अलग था। अभी के स्ट्रक्चर दोनों में बहुत डिफरेंस आ रहा है।
बिल्कुल आपने सही बात, बिकॉज द मिलेनियल वर्कफोर्स इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन, दे डोंट वांट टू हैव कि मेरा सुपर एनुएशन बेनिफिट्स इतना नहीं, आई वांट राइट नाउ मंथ ऑन मंथ व्हाटएवर आई कैन गेट। दे आर नॉट लुकिंग एट, because earlier on the strategy was retention strategy. People will stay for 15 years, 20 years. But today employees are not going to stay for that long, right? So they may at best stay for 3 to 4 years, 5 years. So they are not looking at long-term benefits. Today I want pay more. I mean, I will work more, you give me immediately. So short-term benefits, short-term incentive, they are not looking at long-term, etc. So the entire compensation structuring now takes a turn, and it is actually aligned with what are they seeking, the million focus, what motivates them, what attracts them, and less of retention. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, just say if you take a senior employee, he will say, "Mere ko koi bhi gaadi chalega, Maruti bhi chalega." But this guy will say, "Hey, no, I want to have the best car." Huh?
BMW चाहिए बस.
That's the kind of a thing. Okay. Now, when we are talking about budgeting, if you are the HR head and I, as the managing director, will come and say, "Hey, Mr. Okay, I'll ask Maithili. Maithili or Atindra today. Atindra, tell me what is your compensation budget for next year? HR, I mean, budget, salary budget. How will you go about?" Atindra, have you taken a break? I'll talk to then Sagar. How will you go about, Sagar?
So totally.
You are the HR head. So how will you go about if your MD asks what is the compensation budget for next year? How will you go about?
Budget plan is ready always. Annual salary कितना जा रहा है, तो total annual salary grade wise इतना जाता है. All is budgeted, and bonus, incentive, we are monthly provision we take for LTA also, bonus also, incentive also. So it is a provision amount. We are already provision for that purpose, incentive, and it is already budgeted. Mainly the all expenses also budgeted. So
okay. So one is taking your previous actual, right?
Yeah, previous
what
and
has
actual.
happened? You will take into consideration what was your
increase.
last year's compensation budget or a pool, and then what you will do. If you have increased your revenue, you are planning to projected revenues are 25%. To that extent, you will also increase your budget. Right?
Yes.
That's
Right.
one way.
Yeah.
But there's also one more way of doing. If you are a startup, how will you go about if you are a startup?
Okay, Nirmala, see what we used to do was, and I'm not sure whether it is the right way or not. What we used to do was that we used to take a check with the other companies in the industry, right? So if in case they have any projections for next year, we also used to bank upon, किसी का कोई survey आता था, Mercer's का किसी का आया था. We used to take also that also into consideration. Okay, fine. So next year, so this can be, the increments that can happen on the salaries. So that was one more factor. And then finally, it is always the finance department, right? So they have to work out the revenues and then they have to tell us that exactly kitna rahega.
Yeah, absolutely, Rahul. I was just coming to that. In fact, when you're talking about your compensation budgeting, we also look at as a competent person, a very important metric called ECR. Okay. ECR is nothing but what? Cost to employee cost to revenue. It's a ratio. That means employee cost, your payroll cost of entire cost divided by revenue. Okay. Now, why is it very, very important? Because it is impacting what? Will it impact profit?
It will definitely impact the profits.
Profit.
Higher the employee cost,
Less
you
the
will
lower
reduce
the
your
profit.
profits.
reduce the profit.
That's
Yes.
why if you have to go and ask for approval to the CEO for one full-time employee also, he'll say, no, why can't we outsource? Why can't we do something else? So because higher the wage cost, lesser the profit. So in order to, every organization, what does it do? If you just have a, say, employee cost to revenue, say 12% is my ECR ratio. What can you make of it? You are an IT company. So, say Rahul Verma is working for healthcare company, medical devices. If I say 12%, can you make anything out of it? You can't. So just like salary, what we did, obviously I have to benchmark with similar organizations. Hey, what are the similar organizations? What ECR ratios? No, Rahul also mentioned about it. No, looking at similar organizations, what is their wage cost? Say, for example, similar wage cost, revenue, employee cost, ECR ratio is 10%. That means what can I say then? It means then the CEO will say, hey, but why is our ECR ratio higher than theirs? It's a similar scale scope company. Why are higher wage costs? We need to, because again, it's a question of, your product and services, in order to be competitive, cost also becomes one of the important factors, right? At what cost are you selling today? So therefore, ECR ratio is very important. It has to be in comparison, just like market salaries, in comparison with other companies, benchmark companies. Okay, having said that, if I'm a startup, what will I do? If I'm a startup, say I'm an IT company who is wanting to start up a company. Now, IT startup, how will I do? How will I go about creating a budget for myself? So if I'm a startup, maybe
Compare
that's
with
a,
other IT.
but they're all matured companies. So therefore, maybe my initial startup cost will be a little higher, right?
Oh.
But still, I should know what are the other companies doing. Say, for example, somebody is at a 12%. TCS, Infosys is at 12%. Then Wipro is at, say, 15%. Then not Infosys, I mean, another company is at again, say 16%. So I will say, hey, I will take about 5 to 6 companies, and then I'll decide maybe I want to be around 15% or 16% or 20%. So I'm able to then take a position of where I want to be if I get a range of ECR ratios. Okay, that's one. So typically there are two ways of looking at it. Essentially, but if you don't even know, can you actually then pull out the ECR ratio of some companies you want, but you don't have directly the ECR ratio? What is the other way of getting the ECR ratio? You can go to their annual reports. Then you will get the wage cost. You'll also get the revenue. Then you can divide the employee cost divided by revenue. You can get the ECR ratio. All right. Okay. Now, having said that, now you have got a figure. Say last year, your compensation by you actually spent 200 million. Okay. This year, your budget is increasing by because you have revenue planned growth. So it is increasing by 25%. So how much will the compensation pool will go up? Proportionately. So it will become 250 million. That's right. Okay. Now all of you are ahead the HRs, and how will you go about them? Now you have to go and present it to a CEO. What will you do then? There are certain issues to consider. You have to now do the line item budgeting, right? This is an amount which you cannot cross. Now you have to do line item budgeting. So in level 1, typically what will you do? You will actually look at, hey, is there any new regulatory or statutory compliance which is coming up? Like say, for example, there's a wage code coming up, maybe the PF will go up, etc., etc. So you will then mechanically you will work out and give a figure, say, for example, 10 million. Then you will say, hey, I have to hire my new employees at a certain, I have to at a higher market price because I have to have competitiveness. So maybe that again will cost me about 20 million, for example. Maybe a new variable plan I want to come up with to attract and retain. So again, at 10 million. Or maybe I have to attract. So you look at your internal organization and see some of the challenges which you want to really do course correction. and you will look at all those line items and you will allocate budget. Okay. Next, what will you do? You also have to give what is it, annual increment, right? So say, for example, an average increment of 4%, there is a range, you will say this much and you will give it. Then again, you want to establish internal equity. So there is some kind of a salary compression. So you're saying, hey, I will, maybe incur so much. Then again, for external equity, for certain jobs, then again, because of inflation. So now you have added up earlier 10, 20, 10, 2. So 20, 30, 40, 42. And this one 50. How much has it come up to? 256. But what is your budget?
250.
What's your budget? Huh?
250.
250.
250.
Now what will you do as an HR head?
Look at where we can cut down and bring it to.
So absolutely right. So tell me, if these are the line items, typically where will you cut? Will you cut regulatory compliance?
No,
No,
it is a mandatory.
because you can't. Okay. Maybe to some extent, competitiveness of new employees, which is within your control, you'll say, okay, 20 million, I'll make it about maybe 19. Huh?
So it is
So again,
chances
a
to hire.
new variable plan, because I have to ensure 6 million has to be cut now somewhere. So I have to see attraction and retention of new variable plan. It is within my control. So maybe I will do something about it. Now attract regarding technical supervisory roles, 2 million or my kya cut? I can't cut much. So I will say, okay, let it be there. Then next, what will I do? Annual hike. 4% is the average. If I give much
2%.
lesser than that, I will start having problems. People will what?
The organization.
People will, that's right. So I can't have huge employee turnover, right? So market corrections, maybe 1 million I can do here. So what are you going to do? Inflation, not much can be done. So you will look at all your line items and start reworking on where you can reduce your 6 million. And still, if you think it is impossible, only 5, then you'll have to go and talk to your MD saying that, I have exceeded my budget by 1 million or so. And so therefore, you will have to either give me this much, or
Increase
as an HR head, what else will you do? Tell me. You know
pass
what?
on the pass the
We will
budget.
start using technology. Where can I use technology to reduce my maybe some numbers? Because
Around
you will
change,
start, right?
yeah, change of practice for those.
You will look at some of your practice and say, hey, can I introduce some technology and reduce my what? Workforce numbers, so that, then I can fit within my budget. Why do you think the CEO is very particular about this budget? I told you, if I keep increasing this budget, my profit will keep coming down, no?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right? And typically what happens as an HR head, and I'm sure all of you also do that. So every time we sat with this kind of a budget, so my CEO would then ask all the business heads, okay, fine, I will give this much of annual hike, etc. But tell me, what is that you will do to ensure that we increase productivity, we increase revenues, we increase profits? So everybody has to give a commitment so that the goal of actually what? Profits will actually be on the increase and not decrease. Okay. So therefore, all the businesses have to come up with all innovations. And if you look at the devil, lies in the detail. Some of the detailing which we do typically when we are doing this, let me just show you the detailing now. Existing companies' jobs, new company jobs, we all do this, like what we did for market. What is their benchmark point? What is the median? For some critical positions, how do we do that? Then again, you are looking at job family-wise, all the job families, all right? Then you are looking at, these are those increments. How do you look at comp ratios? We look at Then we're also looking at a total increase. How much of salary are we increasing? Because, while we recommend, we should also not recommend in such a way that our top performers, we start losing all our top performers. So these are all the internal workings, how we go about with the company budgets. We look at all the components of annual salary increments, intra-band, inter-band, midterm salaries, variable payout, hot skills, employee recognition programs, etc. And then if I'm actually not utilizing certain benefits, etc., the percentage of utilization very less, I may scrap them. So this is what you actually look at in detail, and then you will see where am I able to make reduce it, where am I actually then will have to actually increase it, etc. So this is how it is, if you notice. Okay, so sometimes with automation, etc., then you actually come to this amount. Okay, guys, so this is what is all about budgeting. And just one more small topic I was wanting to, because which I didn't do it right in the beginning. Benefits. I explained that benefits are actually planned on the basis of grade wise. So then mostly the categories will be what? Of course, mandated benefits will be given to all. Then tax saving benefits will be for high-end employees who are sitting on high salaries. Then cost saving. What are cost saving benefits? Anybody who can tell me? Are you having such cost saving benefits in your organization? Cost saving benefits are something like, the organization, say, for example, it can actually indent, like I recall one company which used to, it doesn't really take much. So they would find out from their concierge services how much of, these household items. So they would order in bulk, and those when you economies of scale, then you actually pass on that to the employee. Like, for example, insurance. I'm sure most of you are doing it. You buy insurance also for your extended family members, you incorporate them. But while they are actually partnering with certain percentage, because when you buy insurance also in bulk, then the premium comes down. Okay. Or for example, furniture or white goods. So there are many ways where organizations have certain benefits which are called cost saving benefits. What are branding benefits? For example, Infosys invests a lot in learning, training, etc. And there is no option there. They'll say, hey, because we are a learning organization. Okay. So, so organizations to create their branding, so they have certain kind of branding benefits. For example, Google says 30% of the time you can really work on any project of your interest to develop that entrepreneurship. So these are called some of the ways in which organizations do the benefit planning. Okay, guys. So with this, we actually covered entire, let me see, there is some from Rahul. So we covered the entire gamut of compensation and benefits. All right.